So let me ask you this. What do you what was your first experience channeling Einstein, and what have you learned ultimately in these sessions? Ultimately, what have you learned from him that you can share with us? I know it probably is like a ton of stuff, but maybe the bullet points.
Yeah, the bullet points. Well, when we published our first book, Diaries of a Psychic Sorority, which was all about our adventures, and I had a literary agent in New York, and she called me and said there was a tabloid in London. It was like a metaphysical tabloid, Jesus on the side of the garage and aliens. And they were looking for an interview with Princess Di on the 1 year anniversary of her death. And they wondered if I would do it. And I was, again, I'm very skeptical. It's like, what does that mean? How would that work? So I thought, well, give it a try. And I imagined in my head that she was there sitting, and I typed the whole thing and printed it out and read it and wept because it was so deep and it was so profound. And they flew me out to New York, spent 5 hours with me, the tabloid, and then ultimately didn't want the interview. So my agent and I said, hey, if there's other famous dead people who would want to speak. So we made this long list, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Elvis, JFK. And I would, in my head, imagine going to them and saying, would you like to do an interview? And some would say no. Gandhi said, no, he said it all in life. Mother Teresa was tired. Elvis had gotten in too much trouble. And so the second person was Nicole Brown Simpson.
What was that one like? What did she have to say?
Really, really profound and shocking to me because I had this idea that, you die and you go to heaven and everything's peaceful. Oh no. She talked about this very complicated kind of race relations that went on, how OJ grew up and how his family felt about white people, but how OJ knew that he needed white people to advance what he was
Right.
doing. And so there was this huge resentment, and it came out on her. And she just was really very detailed about that. And she wasn't at peace. She just wasn't. She left her kids behind and she was worried about them and him and the whole thing.
Wow.
So that was really amazing. And then we did Johnny Versace, who was the designer who got killed. And when we got to John Kennedy, which is to this day one of my favorite interviews in this book,
Really?
because it's all come out now, what he said. It's all
Right.
come out. But what he told us was that, first of all, this isn't your idea. We are a group of souls in afterlife who have been working, and wink wink, they were in with the angels. And he said, we'll tell you who's coming up next. And honestly, Albert Einstein wasn't even on our list. And when they said Albert Einstein, and I closed my eyes and got out of the way to speak, not only was it super profound, but this was the voice of all of my readings.
The whole time.
Mm-hmm.
That's heavy. Wow.
Really, it took me years to come to grips with this.
That's heavy. So the whole time you have been hearing Einstein's voice. Wow. That's heavy.
And he started in that interview, he touched upon all sorts of things like, he was talking about ADHD and these childhood diseases are really the diseases of the parent.
I agree with that. A thousand
And
percent.
yeah. And so he had all this lovely lilting insight. And I went on to interview all of them, and I published this book in 2001, Party of 12, The Afterlife Interviews.
How many books have you done?
I've published 11,
Wow. Okay.
but I've got 6 or 7 that are about the metaphysics like
Right.
this. So when 2005 rolled around, it was the 100-year anniversary of E equals MC squared. I thought, hey, I should just channel a little book with Einstein. So I did a bunch of sessions, and then I sit down to edit it in through the winter. And this was really life changing for me, because what he did was, and I had no preconceived idea of he was going to say, or what I wanted him to say. He gave me a unified field theory, which is the theory that nobody quite has gotten yet, of how the macrocosm and the planets operate the same as the microcosm and the molecules. They haven't been able to find the mathematics that unify the whole thing. So
Say that
he,
again. So the equation for a universe is the same equation as what we're made out of?
well, the unified field theory, a real one by a real scientist, not me channeling, um, would have the mathematics to show how all of our molecules operate in the same way as all of the planets and the stars.
Whoa, that's heavy. Wow.
Yeah, that's the unified field theory that they're looking for, that they're all looking for. So he gave me this unified field theory, not mathematically, but conceptually. And the thing he told me that made me, again, the skeptic in me, he said, the source of everything originates in the center of the earth, and it operates like a black hole. And knowing nothing about science or black holes, I said, I'm supposed to go in front of people and tell them this. I have no idea if this is just absolutely ridiculous. But I just went with it, and I created my next book, which was Imagining Einstein, Essays on M Theory, World Peace, and the Science of Compassion. And that was where he said compassion was the fifth fundamental force of the universe. It's the creative intelligence that uses the other four fundamental forces to impel the creation of the physical world one step at a time.
Say
And
that
it
again.
can't,
That's deep. So compassion is the fuel to the other four.
yes, it's a
And what are the
creative
other four?
intelligence, electromagnetics, gravity, the strong nuclear force, which is the repelling and the attracting, and the weak nuclear force, which is the transforming, like from red to green or from 1 to 2.
And compassion fuels all four of those.
It's the intelligence that uses them to create the physical world and the universe.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it
Do
was
you know, do
really,
you know how heavy that is spiritually, what you just said?
you know,
That is like you could teach, oh my God, you could open up a whole university just on that, what you just said.
I know,
That is
I know.
it's endless information with what you just said, that sentence. Oh my God, that's wow.
So that was how I found Einstein. And when I published that book in 2007, it was the book that got me invited all over the world. I was teaching and training
Yeah,
conflict resolution. I was
can
showing the
imagine.
unified field theory to people everywhere, and just people, it blows.
That did not come from, no offense, but that did not come from you.
No, 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 no.
What you just said, you know when you connected to something. That is whoa. That is not just you going to the grocery store buying peanuts
Or deciding, maybe
or
I'll be a
deciding, right?
psychic,
That is deep because
and
why that's so deep because because basically how we treat others and how compassionate we are toward others is how you're treating yourself.
Exactly.
You're literally treating yourself the same way.
Yeah. And
Whew.
when we change it inside ourselves, people, it's so hard to do because we're so egotistical. And even when I do it, even till today, when I have to do my own revolution and I think, I don't do that. I'm not that person. And then I have to stop and take some breath and go, you know what? Let's take a look and see if you're disrespecting or I have all kinds of sound bites that I even had to I did a conflict revolution um, on Scott Walker when he got elected in Wisconsin. A lot of bad stuff went down with him, and I was an activist and I was trying to fight it. And I thought, wait a minute, I got to do my own process. And so
Right.
I had to look at him and I've got my sound bite and it's like he's doing illegal things and it's like, well, what does that mean, illegal? Really, what does it really mean?
What
Because I
does it
don't do
really
illegal
mean?
things.
Right. Right.
It meant that if he got found out, he'd be in a lot of trouble,
Right.
you know and so I had to turn that on myself, and it was like, I don't do those things. I don't. And suddenly when you start to really look with the humility, I found this whole entire situation where I had justified basically screwing my friend out of something. I won't go into the whole story,
No, gotcha.
but it was just, it was so shaming when I found it. And then I had to go to her because you can't just find it and then say, oh, shoot, that's bad. No, I had to go make amends. And in the beginning, it was terrible. She was just completely, she was going to sue me. I had these posters that she had done this picture of Einstein, beautiful painting of Einstein. And I said, let me sell them. I was going to Europe. I'll print them up. I'll sell them at my events. I'll bring you back the money, because she was a very poor artist. And in the end, her boyfriend and her decided I was trying to rip them off. And no,
Right.
you can't do this. And I'd already printed them up. And I thought, well, I'll just give them away. I would never sell them, but I've spent the money. I'll give them in my conference things. No, that's not right. That's not right either.
Right. Because it doesn't belong to you.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right.
so I went to her and confessed,
Right.
and and I thought they just wanted nothing more to do with me. And I thought, I have to do something. So I wrote another letter apologizing, and I sent her the money that she would have made.
Okay, that's good.
And a year later, she came up to me, threw her arms around my neck, and said, Barb, we were so poor, we couldn't afford food. We couldn't get off. I live on an island in Lake Superior. We couldn't get off the island to move to Minneapolis, so at least my husband could work. You saved our lives.
Wow. That made
And
me cry. Wow.
several years ago, she had prints of that picture that I loved. And she said, Barb, do you want to buy a print of that picture? And it was like the circle was. And so if you ever see in my promo materials, I'm sitting in front of this incredible picture of Einstein. That's the miraculous story behind that.
That is such a miraculous story. That is such a beautiful story. That is wow. So
And listen, just quick, think about, I was thinking about this the other day about that story, is that if I'd never done that,
come on.
what would have been
Come
living
on.
inside me?
Say it. Yes. 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 And what you did was you became a healer and didn't even know it at the time that you became a healer. You activated your healing gift of by becoming humble and following your intuition and become ultimately a servant because you spent your money, you had to rethink how to do this, you let ego out of it. I don't want to lose any money, you let all that go and you just said, you know what is the right thing to do? What is my soul's urging in this situation? What is it telling me I should do at this moment? And you followed that and got a huge blessing afterwards. That's the part that people never talk about. Because there's a blessing in the feeling of just, that's why you feel good when you give, because it's that's ultimately what the universe is doing, is consistently giving to us. So when we're not giving, whether it's our time, our resources, our energy, healing energy, whatever, if we're not giving, then we're actually living in chaos because you're conflicted with all these things that you know you need to fix, but you're choosing not to fix them. I mean, that's so brilliant. I'm I'm speechless right now. So let me ask you this though. So there'll be people that'll say, well, okay, Barbara, listen, it sounds cool, it sounds nice, but listen, I've tried to reach out to my dad. I've tried to reach out to my mother. I tried to reach out to my sister. They don't want to have anything to do with me. I've tried to be that good person. I've tried to make it work. I need your help. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to force them to talk to me? Am I supposed to force them to respect me? What am I supposed to do? It doesn't work in every situation. What would you say to that?
I say we have to first start with ourselves. So let's take your father, your mother, or anything, and tell me very briefly, like we call them sound bites. What do you perceive them that they're doing? What do you perceive that they are doing to you? And then we take that and we revolve it back to ourselves and we leave them. God bless you. I'll put you out on a farther circle. I can love you from here. I do this with my dad, who was incredibly abusive.
Right.
And now let's take care of it here first. Let's
That's
see
good.
where, well, my dad, he never, he doesn't, I don't think he loves me and I don't think he respects me. Okay. Do you love yourself? Because you can't give what you don't have. And when you just give and give and give, but you don't aren't giving generously with self-love, it becomes codependency and it becomes draining. But when we really start with ourselves, take care of responsibility for our own shortcomings, for our own selves, and we find the way to, first of all, like we say, feel and breathe. That's a lot of anger if it's about dad or whatever. And then we find those places where we're not respecting ourselves. And the interesting thing about this process is that it's not one to one. Sometimes it's a direct mirror, but a lot of times what you're perceiving in your father is something that's way over here for you. And here's the example. I had a woman in a workshop and she said her thing was, my mother-in-law hates me. She wants me deported. I was in Norway and it was a woman from Barbados who was married to a Norwegian, and my Norwegian mother-in-law wants me to get deported. And so I started to teach the process, and okay, she wants me to be deported. Let's turn this around. And she, before she even had her aha moment, she said to me, "You know how this is going to end, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, but not because I'm some great psychic, but because it's a formula."
Right.
And her eyes welled up and she said, "I'm homesick." And I said, "Why don't you go back to Barbados?" And she said, here's what she said. She said, "Well, I've got these two kids and my husband." And I'm thinking, what do you've got, a 6-month-old and a 1-year-old? I said, "How old are your kids?" She goes, 14 and 17. I said, "And your husband, doesn't he make a lot of money?" He was very, very wealthy man. So all this time she's lying to herself
Right.
because she doesn't think she deserves it. And then she's projecting on her mother-in-law. Well, she wants me deported. Well, you want to get deported because you want to go home. And when she got that, she came back the next day, and we call it the Rolodex effects. Remember Rolodexes where you flip through, flip, flip,
Yeah.
flip, flip. She went through 25 years of a relationship with her mother-in-law and saw the whole thing differently. Like, God, how many times was I projecting on her? I don't even know. now that I see that I've been doing it. And her relationship not only cleared up with her mother in law, but she started going back to Barbados on a regular basis and bringing her family with her. So,
That's beautiful. Wow. So it's basically it's about going with it. There are certain times where you cannot reconcile with family members, but you can still reconcile with yourself,
yes,
right? Finding out what it is that's within you that's making you feel that feeling, because it's go back to that word feeling. So say those three things again. You said it's
emotion,
emotion,
intuition,
intuition,
and intellect.
and intellect. So intellect we know is somewhat the word ego for some
Yep.
people. We do know intuition is God, but what is that what is that feeling? What is that one?
Emotion is, according to Einstein's unified field, this is the fuel of creation. This is
Emotion.
yeah, it's like the primordial soup of all the mysterious magical stuff that we're made of that starts to come up through us, and as it literally we see it in our solar plexus, and it flows up into our heart, and the second dimension of intuition and sound is born. So emotion is informing intuition. What is that next step? What is the next most advantageous step? What is the voice of God going to tell us based on this emotion? And it's a very different concept. It's a very different definition than we think, oh, emotional stuff and feelings. It's really this powerful fuel, and it's what connects us to God.
Wow. So emotion connects us to intuition, but emotion can also connect us to ego, right?
Yes, and once it's flowing up and then it flows into your head,
Which is anger.
well, it could be if there's anger flowing up through you, maybe God is informing you to, as we said earlier, step back, take a breath, you know, chill.
So you have to have kind of intuition or discernment to know what it's telling you, right? Okay, so emotion fuels intellect and it fuels intuition. Go into intellect a little bit because a lot of people think intellect is good and ego is good. I mean, we're taught that. I mean, if you look at the whole social media society, it's everything is about look at me. It's the look at me show, you know?
Yeah.
I'm better than you are, and I'm making more money than you are, and I'm doing this. That's intellect. I did it on my own, and I'm talk a little bit about the intellect part because emotion and intellect, emotion also fuels intellect, right?
Yes. Well, let's start at a really basic level, aside without any judgment. Okay. So, what Einstein taught us was that in order for us to be sitting here having with these bodies, right? And we're looking and there's separate, it's everything separate. It starts with emotion, this fuel, and it rises up, and the intuition is impelling. So there's parts of me that's intuition is impelling, go be the heart, go be the brain, go be the hair, go be go be these things, go create these things. And it gets to the intellect, and on a really basic level, the intellect is what defines. It's what's saying that is a computer, that is a chair.
Right,
So we need it.
right. Of course.
And but where the ego comes in then is the human part of us that, as I say, has been given the power to disregard what intuition tells us.
Gotcha. I got it. Okay.
So you need intellect, but it's that ego part that wants to get control.
Control it, right. It wants
Mm-hmm.
to basically ultimately control the God in you.
Yes.
It wants to control all of that. And it's like you have to know because into what I've noticed with me, intuition is peaceful and silent a lot of times for me. It comes to me what I'm supposed to do. I feel it, and it's softly telling me you should do this, you should do that. But ego comes in bold, like, no, you should get in the car, blast your music, and go to that place and tell them how you really feel. You know. And what I've learned is and but you've helped me a great deal today. But what I've learned is whenever I feel that feeling of like rage, if you want to call it, because to me, pride and rage are almost one and the same for certain people. When you feel that, what I've noticed is the more you stop and just do nothing, think about nothing, feel nothing, the more you come to your intuition because there's room now. There's room for intuition to come in and go, that wasn't, it's kind of like the old cartoon where you see the devil and God on the other.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
And so for me, it's amazing to hear you talk about the ego part because what I see in society, a lot of it is the ego. I don't see a lot of, I mean, I'm not saying it's not there, but I'm not seeing as much as I would like of people connecting to their intuition.
Yeah. I agree.
So a lot of what you do is not really psychic as much as helping the psyche,
Yes.
helping the mind, helping. I love that because just reading people's stuff, it's just you're not fixing anything. You're just reading who they are in that moment. But the whole point of what you do, from what I'm hearing, is you want to also help them have the tools themselves so that they don't necessarily need a reading for every second and a reading for every moment because they're creating these moments the way they want in their life.
Yeah. And when I do a reading, it's a lot of tr- illustrating what we're talking about, the model. And then when people have questions, oh, I don't know if I should get rid of my artwork and go into this or that, then they're able to take the model to their actual details. And that's when there's the aha moments that people have. And I always say, people used to come in the beginning, well, is my boyfriend coming back? And, all these things. So it's like, those are parlor tricks. I can tell
Right,
you those things. I
right,
can tell you those things, but what's the point?
right, right, right. So people, as we kind of wrap this up, people they come to you today for what do they come to you today the most? How can people get in touch with you too?
Well, if you go to barbarawith.com, uh, there's so much there that'll keep
Right.
you
I went
busy.
I went there, trust me, guys. She's a busy bee.
And but I think uh the most requests that I get are for readings. And if anybody who's listening wants a reading, and if you use Einstein when you buy it, you'll get half off. There's a coupon code for
So
that.
what is the price right now on Einstein?
300 for an
300, but you
hour.
get half off if you
Yes.
act now.
Use Yeah, if you use Einstein
Einstein.
as the coupon code.
And the coupon, when you connect for these people, tell a little bit about your process. Do you actually connect to Einstein's consciousness, or is it just your gift that you have and you just help people as a psychic?
I think that the party, as I call them,
Are
uh,
there?
is a group of souls in
Right.
afterlife, and who else but Albert Einstein would die, figure out how to get back, and so this party is growing exponentially as the years go on, and also you have, your great grandma, and there's people who have other lives, and there's just all kinds of information, but I feel as though it's really um it's really compassion speaking. To me, it's over the years, even now, as much as I love Einstein. Um, it just feels like a God thing.
Two more questions. So this is a question that I get a lot whenever you're probably the second psychic I've had on the show, and and everybody has a different answer for this, but I want to know your answer. Is there a heaven and a hell? And if so, what is the afterlife? What is that? How does that determine where you're going to go? And if there isn't a heaven or a hell, what is the afterlife, if you will? Because you mentioned some of these entities are there to help navigate from the other side. Some people call them demons. Oh, that's not real. They're demons because they don't understand it, right? But yeah, is there an afterlife? And if so, how is it determined where you go after you die?
The compilation of every decision that you make. And then when we die, we bring that into an energetic field. We don't have the body that's kind of slowing everything down, on the earth. And then we experience that. And in Party of 12, we talked to Adolf Hitler, and he explained that hell is something that was emanating from within him. He was experiencing all of the decisions of all the people that he had murdered, and it was dripping from him. He was in this torturous agony, having to live with the product of his decisions. And I think that's what hell is. I think that's what evil is. And so, for example, the example of the woman in the painting, if I had not gotten to that and released it and healed it, took responsibility for it, made amends for it, I would have taken that when I died into my energy and afterlife, and it would have been all that stuff working to have that experience energetically. And then I don't know if you believe in reincarnation, but I do, and I think then we have to come back onto the planet and we bring it with us, and now we got to work through it again. And I think that's what a lot of us are doing, right? Life after life, where we've been warriors and murderers and murdered, and
Right.
we're trying to balance it all out. But if you look at the unified field theory that Einstein gave us, it really explains so critically how, when we lose our bodies, why we continue, and how it continues, that our energy continues to live on. But then Jesus said that, he came
Right.
back and said, hey, you live on.
And you talk about this in your book.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about your book before we go.
Party of 12, the afterlife interviews.
Yes.
Yes. And that's including all the people I've mentioned. There's 12, well,
Hey,
with
but,
the
but not to
intro.
cut you off, but how do people get your books on the website, right?
Yes,
Okay.
barbarawith.com. You
Okay.
can go. They're on Amazon too, but you get them through my website too. But in that book, I talked to Jesus, an incredible conversation with Jesus that explains all of this.
And that's in the book.
Yes.
Oh, I got to get the book.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Freud, there's a whole nother can of worms, about psychology and psychiatry and his mistakes. Um, Norma Jean Baker and
Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe, she talked all about uh, feminism and the power of women and the power that women have. And so there's just, and then it's an introduction by John Kennedy Jr., which was also really, all these, they blew my mind. I didn't even know most of these people when I did it. And through the years, it's really held up to be just fascinating. If it's not them, then gosh, I must be brilliant, because I didn't know any of that.
So ultimately, every decision we make on earth is being calculated.
compiled.
for a day of judgment,
Yeah.
ultimately. And on that day of judgment, basically, you're either justified or condemned based upon your own actions.
Yeah. And isn't that just traditionally how
That's
we understand it?
traditionally how we understand it.
Yeah.
Wow. So how you treat people that are watching, because they're able to watch us, our faces on Spotify. Um, how you treat people is everything. That's why I'm so scared for this hookup culture, divorce culture, the Instagram culture, because it is so driven by ego. It
Yeah.
is so driven by ego. It's scary. And it just makes me focus more on uh, being a better person because I don't want to have to pay for those sins later. And, we call it sin. It's not really, sin, all sin really is just separation from your intuition.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's not a thing, it's people think sin is, oh, it's not. It's just ultimately making decisions that are selfish, that are
Yeah.
not serving humanity and even serving yourself. We're supposed to take care of ourselves. The Holy Scripture says the Bible is your body, I'm sorry, is the temple, meaning you are to take care of your temple and treat it with love and care. It's like, a flower, and you can smoke cigarettes and put the cigarette butts in the flower pot, or you could put water and sunlight. It's just how you treating what has been given to you. Last question, final question. What would you want to say to anyone that's watching if they, I mean, ultimately, we want them to read the books and give you a call and get sessions on your website. I think it's phenomenal. I think it has to be the best $300 you ever spent, to be honest with you. But what would you say, just on a small note, for people that are suffering mentally and trying to get out of guilt and shame from past mistakes? What would you tell them to how to navigate from that?
I would start by going back to this idea that all those emotions, guilt and shame, when we sit with them and honor them with our breath, so we can say, oh, and release them without letting them marry themselves to the thoughts. Oh, I'm such a terrible person. No, just sit with them, be with them, and then pray. Listen to, like you said, when you get silent and you release them and you get into your intuition, you start to hear the voice of God saying, you're a beautiful child of God. Then listen to your ego that's going to say, no, I'm not. I'm a terrible person. This is where the work is. This is what we
Mm,
call the work. How are you going to
mm,
change the thought process? Because you can, and you're the only one who can. You're either going to beat yourself up or you're going to start to have different intellectual stories. And here's the rule of thumb with our work is that whatever you're saying, revolve it. I'm such a terrible person. I'm a magnificent child of God.
mm,
Just reverse it 180 degrees to what you think. Well, I'm the greatest person in the world. Well, maybe I got some flaws too. So you start to see the whole picture. And that shift, even us having this conversation, you felt yourself shift. You haven't been done the work, I mean, officially, but you feel the shift because it makes so much sense and it appeals to your soul. You go, yes, yes, this is it. Let the voice of God come out. Let the ego be the faithful servant to the intuition. That's what we train our egos to do. So that when the intuition is telling us to do something, our ego is actually this is the alignment. It's when our ego is just in present moment looking at the world, observing the world, discovering what's being And then when the intuition says turn left, then it turns left. But how much do we think, and we think everything is crappy, and we think, and we miss this miracle that we're even sitting here having this conversation. We're a miracle just sitting in a chair doing nothing. So that would be my words that I would leave everybody.